Good evening and welcome to the March 2nd, 2021 Guilderland Central School District Board of Education meeting. Would you all please silence your cell phones and recite the pledge? The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so first on the agenda tonight, we have several public comments. I'll go through and read them. The first one is from Olivia Chadwick. It says, "Thank you to all our counselors, social workers, and school psychologists. We could not get through this year without you. Thank you especially to our counselors at the high school level who have experienced significantly higher caseloads this year with one less counselor and the addition of 8th grade students. The grace that you all maintain under that increased stress on top of this extremely stressful year is a true testament to your professionalism and character." Okay, the second, one second. The second public comment is from Nina Kaplan. It says, "Good evening. Thank you for taking my comment. I'm inquiring about the calendar for the next year. I've heard that the year begins on the second day of the Jewish holiday, Rosh Hashanah. Could you please verify if this is the case? If so, would the board consider changing the date? I imagine that this start date must also be problematic for many of the faculty staff as well. Thank you for your consideration." The next public comment is from Jamie Vadney. She writes, "I see that the 21-22 calendar is on the agenda. Do we have any idea what the daily schedule will be? Will it be staying the same or changing back to the more normal schedule?" And the next public comment is from Laura Castle and Michael Seawriter. "The start of the 21-22 school year poses a unique situation this year with Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, falling in line with the beginning of school. Following the pattern of previous years, having school on the second day of the holiday would place Jewish families throughout the district in the position of having to choose between observance of a major Jewish holiday and the first day of school. Please give serious consideration to delaying the start of school by one day to avoid what would be a very difficult situation for many families." Okay, the next public comment is from Dr. Sarah Berg. She writes, "As a Jewish Guilderland resident, I'm very concerned by the district's proposal to begin the 21-22 school calendar on Rosh Hashanah, a holiday which does not end until sundown on Wednesday, September 8th. Families should not have to choose between their child's attendance on the first day of classes, which for many could be the first time they are inside a school building since March 2020, and practicing their religion. Similarly, staff should not feel like they are unable to fulfill their first day of school job responsibilities due to high holiday religious observation. If they elect to take paid leave time, then their students will meet a substitute on that day instead of having the opportunity to start creating a bond with their regular teacher. Starting the school year on one of the most important days of the Jewish calendar is contrary to Guilderland Central School District's message about recognizing and valuing the diversity of its community, and it would seem to violate the spirit of the non-discrimination language in Board of Education Policy 0100. Thank you for your consideration." And then we have one more public comment. This is from a group of teachers. And they write, "Dear Guilderland Board of Education members, we are reaching out to you during this budget time to ask for support in bringing our students back into their special area classrooms and libraries for the fall of 2021. To serve our Guilderland students properly, this must be a priority for the district. This is obviously a unique year due to the pandemic, but the model we are currently implementing is not sustainable for our students, our programs, or our staff. Reflection serves as an integral role in education. Although we appreciate the accolades that, quote, teachers are doing amazing work this year, look what we've accomplished, unquote. Our concern lies with the board decisions moving forward, where there has been a forum for special area educators to collectively self-assess, express current impacts, and use this feedback to guide a plan. Positives about the current model aside, we also need to publicly acknowledge the larger picture and the constant roadblocks and issues that exist for students and staff. With focus only on the positive, the Board of Education may assume current COVID practices and educational configurations could remain in place when looking to save money. To clarify, these are just a few examples of the challenges the special areas and librarians are experiencing. The vast and diverse curated library collections have been deconstructed into book carts weighing hundreds of pounds, with librarians having to push a limited selection of books throughout the building, only allowing students a few minutes at a time to make book selections, pulling hundreds of books weekly to fill student requests. Although they have access to virtual resources, students, especially primary age, have lost the exploration, engagement, and inquiry opportunities that purposefully organized library space offers. This year, music education is on a cart. COVID restrictions do not allow singing, dancing, and sharing instruments, and teachers are dependent on a digital platform. Instruction is constantly impeded by technology that is inadequate, with old computers and weak signals in the building making it impossible at times to deliver any meaningful instruction. Art classes at the elementary schools are sacrificing established art room procedures and lessons to accommodate the circumstances of this time. The fallout being that the students are not receiving intended curriculum and are not having access to necessary materials because of the restrictions that come from teaching from a cart. Lastly, art and music programs have suffered a reduction of instructional time this year, time we need back in September to help us educate our students at appropriate levels of instruction that will meet New York State standards. We understand that the district may still have restrictions in the fall as a result of COVID-19. However, we are asking you to trust us to come up with solutions to keep everyone safe while returning to teach in our special area classrooms and libraries. The ability to clean and sanitize between classes is manageable, as physical education classes have proven it to us this year. With limited information this past fall, we have navigated the restrictions to serve our students the best we can. Through our experiences and reflection this year, we are confident that we can deliver our programs more effectively in our teaching spaces and have a positive impact on student learning and social emotional well-being. Thank you for consideration. And this is signed Diana Ackner, Susan Bolenton, Carrie Lynn Close, Carrie Deneen, Kim Harmon, Michelle Janston, Dee Johnson, Christine Monley, Star Norman, and Judy Russo. And I think those are all the public comments. Right, Linda, no more came in? Okay. I think the calendar issue we're going to be addressing down further in the agenda when it's superintendent information, so we can talk about that then. And I think we'll talk with the district, correct, Marie, about the special area, the last letter that I read from the special area teachers.
Yeah, I'll just say that at this time we're planning for next year to look like a typical school year. So that's our intent. Of course, we need to be hopeful that we don't have too many restrictions. And if we do, we've learned a lot since we've opened this year to try to accommodate learning as best as we can in those special areas.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the consent items. This includes the minutes of the February 9th meeting, CPSE and CSE recommendations, personnel action, and the financials 1 through 3. Can I have a motion to accept the consent items? Barb? A second? Rebecca? Any questions or comments?
I just have one. It's very minor. In personnel, resignation, non-instructional, Chelsea Coro, the date she joined the district is wrong. It says 9/25/21. I think they just meant 20, but I thought it should be corrected in the minutes.
Thanks, Judy, for catching that.
Also, Seema, I think we need to hold on the coaching appointments until after the approval later in the agenda.
Oh, yes. Okay, so for the personnel action, we're going to take out the coaching appointments, which mine is still opening up, so I don't know what letter that is. So that's letter H. Thank you. So we'll vote on all of them minus letter H, all the coaching appointments. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes 9-0. Thank you. Okay. Next, we'll go down to information items. We have curriculum and instruction. Dr. Singleton.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. The Guilderland Central School District is very proud to announce that Farnsworth Middle School was redesignated for the third time on February 16th as an essential elements school to watch by the New York State Education Department and the Essential Elements Schools to Watch leadership team. Farnsworth was first recognized as a school to watch in March of 2011. The School to Watch program in New York recognizes middle school programs with a focus on continuous improvement and excelling in the following 4 areas. They are academic excellence, developmental responsiveness, social equity, and organizational structure. Farnsworth is one of only 37 schools from throughout New York to be currently named as a school to watch. So well-deserved congratulations to Mr. Laster and all of the staff and students at Farnsworth Middle School for yet again being redesignated a school to watch. Great, great job. My next item is actually mislabeled. This should really be a district celebration, not just high school. But in recent weeks, I wanted to highlight a couple of things that have taken place regarding diversity, equity, and our work in anti-racism in the district. So in recent weeks and months, our school community and Board of Education, as you know well, have established a strong commitment to not only celebrating student diversity and cultures, but to also take actionable steps to combat all forms of racism, discrimination, and inequality in our schools and beyond. Our high school anti-racism task force has again resumed their work under the leadership now of Shannon Elliott, and they're eager to begin bring their mission statement, which I shared previously on December 8th, to life. I also want to recognize and thank our Black Student Union, which has been compiling and sharing Black history facts with the school community. And I have a few examples linked for your viewing pleasure. Additionally, at GHS, our English 11 students have contributed to a I Dream of a World crowdsourced poem. And this is an activity that's sponsored by NPR. It was inspired by the inaugural poet, Amanda Gorman, and her stirring poem, The Hill We Climb. And you can take a look at some of the words of our own students as they contributed to this national activity. So thank you to our students who contributed from GHS. And of course, the month of February also featured some noteworthy highlights at every level, and these include, but are by no means limited to, some work with our ENL teachers who have celebrated Lunar or Chinese New Year. February 12th began the Year of the Ox, and while Lunar New Year is most commonly associated with China, where it is the most important holiday and celebration of the year, many other Asian countries recognize and celebrate this holiday also. Throughout our district, we have many students in every grade who celebrate Lunar New Year at home with their families. At Linwood Elementary School, our ENL teacher, Beverly Baudette, and others have recognized that talking about Lunar New Year in the classroom is a great way to celebrate multicultural and multilingual diversity, fostering inclusion and awareness of other cultures. It also fits in perfectly with many of our social studies units and themes, such as at grade 2, My Community and Other Communities, at grade 3, Communities Around the World, etc. Ms. Baudette created and shared a Bitmoji classroom that was distributed to parents and families that features a series of videos used to introduce Chinese New Year with a focus on the meaning of the holiday as well as cultural aspects, including food, dance, and celebration. So thank you to Ms. Baudette and our ENL department for their efforts. I also want to recognize the work of our librarians. The month of February was, of course, Black History Month. This was first recognized by President Gerald Ford in 1976, and Black History Month continues to this day as an important opportunity to teach children about the many historical and enduring contributions made by African American leaders, influencers, authors, politicians, artists, musicians, et cetera, et cetera. By teaching our learners to respect and honor the culture, history, and accomplishments of African Americans, they will ultimately become better, more tolerant, and positive citizens who will help our entire society to move forward and grow. Our librarians have spearheaded some activities in our schools to celebrate Black History Month. By no means, however, has their work been limited to the month of February. I want to point that out. Their efforts are year-round, providing materials, resources, literature, activities to all of our teachers and students. And I did link a few of the activities that were conducted last month. Some strategies and examples of their recent efforts include a Black History Month school museums, the Bitmoji classrooms that I described previously, as well as a gallery of Black authors at Farnsworth Middle School, Black history biography shelves, choice boards, class literature sets, etc. And I included with the update a few pictures of some of the activities that have taken place and some of the displays that you can see throughout our school. So I want to thank everyone involved. It's important work and it's ongoing work, as we know. But I wanted to provide you with some updates of some things that have taken place in recent weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Singleton.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda, we have school business information. Neil?
Thank you, Seema. I'm very pleased to share that the school district received the 2021 Farm to School Partnership Award. This award was sponsored by the New York School Nutrition Association and the New York State Agriculture and Markets. On January 23rd, 2020, Guilderland High School hosted the Capital District Region Farm to Fork Local Food Expo. Local vendors, growers, buyers, and school districts were able to connect and create a pathway for locally grown and produced products to reach area schools, institutions, restaurants, wholesalers, and supermarkets. School districts attaining at least 30% locally produced ingredients in their lunch program will see an increase in their school lunch reimbursement rate. Again, congratulations to Food Service Director Megan Beck for this award and facilitating the creation of this pathway for locally grown and produced products.
Awesome. Congratulations to Megan. Thanks, Neil. Next on the agenda, superintendent information. Dr. Wiles?
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. The first item tonight is the board's first opportunity to take a look at the draft calendar for the 2021-2022 school year. And I'll just point out it is attached to the agenda. The calendar includes 180 days of student pupil attendance days, which is the requirement that we have to meet, and a total of 184 days, which includes 4 superintendent conference days, during which we provide time for our teachers to do planning and collaboration and other professional development. So I know there were a number of public comments related to the very first day of school this year, which at this point we have designated as Wednesday, September 8th. This year, Labor Day falls on the 6th. We are not beginning school on 7th in observance of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, but we did plan, as we have in the past, to be in session on the second day of that Jewish High Holy Day. So I know that has raised some concerns, but I'm opening this up for discussion and commentary. And again, this is an information item tonight. We won't be acting on this until the next meeting.
I just have one question, Marie. So you said that normally, right, we observe the first day of the 2-day Jewish holiday. That's always been the past practice.
That has been the practice for as long as I can remember, yes.
And if it were changed, I'm just thinking spaces where they would have to take the day would be like a holiday or like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving or part of a vacation week.
Yes, because this calendar is right at the minimum of 180 pupil attendance days. If we were to begin school on Thursday, September 9th, we would have to look at another place within the calendar for a day of pupil instruction. And the options are November 24th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. The other option would be March 18th, and we reduce one of our superintendent conference days. We have not had a March conference day in several years, though. So that would be, we need that day. That's the only day our elementary teachers get to do professional development in an entire year, a full day. So we do not have one of those this year. So that would be, something we want to hang on to. And that we'd have to turn that into a pupil instruction day. And then any other holiday, we could shorten by a day. So we have, well, probably the December break wouldn't make sense because of when, just where the dates fall on the Fridays. There's February break, April break, including Good Friday. And that's really all the options we have.
Marie, if we do a half a day on the day before Thanksgiving, does that count as a pupil attendance day, or does it have to be a full day?
We have to hit a certain number of hours, but yes, a half day could be counted as a pupil attendance day.
Blanca, did you have your hand up?
I was just wondering, Marie, has Rosh Hashanah ever landed on the first day of school this way?
I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure it has at some point. I don't remember it having occurred certainly not in my time here in Guilderland.
Barb, you have a question?
I just have a comment. The day before Thanksgiving has been probably, from the standpoint of parents and travel, one of the most popular days that are in our calendar. And I've heard nothing but wonderful things that it allows people to actually be with family, for that time period and travel and then, get back, because Friday is always a day off afterwards. So I certainly wouldn't want to lose that.
I just have a question, or two questions, Marie. The people who are creating the calendar, there's representation, I'm guessing, right, from teachers, parents. Can you just explain who's involved?
Well, let me back up and talk about the process. The general framework of the calendar actually begins at the Capital Region BoCEs. And the district superintendent there works with the district superintendents of the neighboring BoCEs regions, because we share so many programs across our regions: career and technical education, special education programs, Tech Valley High School, that we work very hard to have our calendars match for at least all of the major breaks. So that process starts at the macro level. Here in Guilderland, we start with the BoCEs calendar, but then we also look at our own contractual obligations, because those vary from district to district. And then we will draft a calendar. In past years, we would bring people together for a meeting to talk through it. But because of our current circumstances, we actually, shared the calendar with our various stakeholder groups. So representatives from the teachers, from GAWA, our business office looked at it for payroll purposes. We shared it with the PTA group. We shared it with our administrative group, and get feedback from all of those groups before we bring it to you.
And then my other question, that holiday goes until the evening or sundown of the 8th, right? That Wednesday. So if we were to keep it the same, would it be possible at the least to not have after school activities or evening activities? So there's a little bit of compromise there, or I don't know if that's something we can agree on and talk about.
Well, given the holiday ends at sundown, which is still fairly late in September, we could absolutely make sure that we don't have events that evening that would happen before sundown, which most would at that point in the year. If it were December, sundown would be 10 after 4.
Other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, I have to lower my hand. Okay. Blanca, do you have a question?
So what would the board recommend as a next step?
So I
we
think you said we
into-
need to vote next time, right, Marie?
Yes.
So when would you like us to comment? Next time or now?
You can begin now and I can continue to, take your phone calls and your emails through that period of time.
Okay. So I did not know much about the holiday when this was brought to my attention. I'll just be honest about that. I was raised Catholic. From what I gather, this is the religious equivalent of Good Friday and Easter. So at first I thought it was perhaps like New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, but it's really not. It's a very holy event, and it's both days that are important, not just the one. And so I guess I feel like if we have a group of students that we know now are at risk for missing the first day of school, and we also know as a Board of Education that if you miss the first day of school, that can put you at a disadvantage the whole year, or at least the beginning, socially and academically, that we need to take it very seriously and not place these potential students here at risk for that, and teachers at risk for missing that and starting the year off in a bad way. That's my 2 cents.
So I think the best course of action from here would be to figure out when we'd make up that day. I think everyone's sort of in agreement that, we'd like to give the day off. It's just a matter of when we're going to make it up and what effect that day will have and everything else. So I think that's where we should go moving forward.
Barbara?
I think one of the options that you mentioned was having an earlier start date to the school year. The other options seem to really infringe upon other real needs in the district. So could you maybe flesh that out a little bit and give us a little more information on that?
I could. Let me just provide a little context. At the start of each school year, we typically do 2 superintendent's conference days. They are designed to provide our returning staff an opportunity to meet together, plan, have department meetings, get ready for the arrival of students. As you can see in this calendar, those dates are September 1 and 2. For contractual reasons, we do, the teacher's contract doesn't permit coming back before September 1st. So if we were to want to adjust that, we would have to negotiate that with the association and get a memorandum of agreement. But if we were to stay on September 1st and 2nd as conference days, we could bring students in on Friday, February 3rd. And then they would not return back to school until Thursday, September 9th. Now, it has been customary in the district to not have teachers or other 10-month staff report on the Friday before Labor Day. We do have many families and others who will travel that weekend because it's the long weekend before Labor Day. So that's just another consideration to balance here. The other option, which I alluded to a bit ago, would be to have a day of instruction on Thursday, September 2nd. And if we valued, and I think we do, having 2 days, and I think our faculty does too, 2 days to prepare for the arrival of students, we would need to begin on August 31st. So we would have conference days on August 31st and September 1st, and that would require a memorandum of agreement with our teachers association. So then there would be a first day of school on September 2, and then the second day of school a week later on September 9th.
I guess I would like just to get an informal read on the teachers union to see if they would, in this 1 year where the calendar falls as it does, agree to that earlier, that one day earlier start that the contract right now, from what you say, does not permit. But if we could just approach them and say, this is an occurrence that's not going to happen every single year, and then this particular year, would you consider it, and bring back to us a feel of, what kind of response you got from the teachers union. I think that would be helpful.
I can certainly do that. I think with that kind of a change, I would probably want to reach out to all of our stakeholders to weigh in, because that would be quite a departure from what we've planned right here. So I would want to weigh in with all of our stakeholders. I don't know if it matters per se, but I did survey the other school districts in the suburban council to see when everyone around us is starting their first day of school. And it's about a 50-50 split on either beginning on September 7th or September 8th. The one exception to that is Saratoga. They are beginning on the 9th, and they are not taking off the day before Thanksgiving. I haven't heard from Albany and Schenectady at this point, but I will see both of those superintendents on Friday and can certainly talk with them.
Kelly, go
Kelly?
ahead. You're muted, Kelly.
Got it. Sorry, I got distracted by my kids going to bed for a second, so pardon me if you've already discussed this. Is it feasible to, I have two questions. Is it feasible to tack a day on at the end? I know with the teachers union, maybe that's, and if you already discussed it, I apologize. And also, the day after Thanksgiving, is that always a holiday? Like, it's not like a state holiday. I don't get that day off. Is that always given off, or is that just a custom? Or, I mean, I know it's Black Friday and all, but just wondering.
In my 30 plus years, it's always been a day off. I don't know what it's called other than the day after Thanksgiving. Kelly, the state education department designates technically the last day of school. They call it the rating day, which is June 24th. We have typically not extended the school year beyond the last day as defined by the state education department. And I think if we were to add a day at that point, we have some contractual obligations. I'm looking to Neil to refresh we haven't used those because we do need to, I think, compensate teachers for additional time at that point.
I mean, nobody wants to come end of school on expect to end of school on Friday and come back on a Monday for one day. That's pretty ridiculous, but just trying to throw out all kinds of options here.
Blanca, and then Rebecca, and then Gloria.
Thank you. I liked the idea that Barb brought up, although I think that she went in a different direction, but the 24th, the day before Thanksgiving, what about making it a half day? That way, if people are traveling, they're only missing a half day of school, and we're not sending the message that a travel day is more important than a religious holiday.
Okay, thank you, Blanca. Rebecca, and then Gloria.
I think there's obviously a lot of competing interests here. And coming back the Friday before Labor Day is not going to make a lot of parents, it's not going to make them very happy. I think the day before Thanksgiving, like Barbara pointed out, is really popular amongst our parents. Is it feasible to do some sort of like push poll or some very simple survey to our parents to get a sense of, if you had a choice, which day you would prefer off or which day you would prefer to start? Is that a feasible thing in our timeline? Feasible expectation?
Yeah, we communicate with parents almost daily. So we could do a quick date. I guess the question would be, what days am I asking them to choose between or among?
I think, would you rather start on Wednesday, and I don't have the calendar in front of me, but September 8th, I think. Friday, September 6th or 2nd. Or would you rather have the the day before Thanksgiving off, or Good Friday off? I just think that would give us a better sense. That way we're asking all of our stakeholders, if the teachers are included and the parents.
I think that's very doable. We just have to figure out how to word it so we're getting clear direction.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. Gloria?
Any thought to playing around with that snow day, that contingent snow day, May 27th? I mean, that's contingent. What if we made that not contingent, made it a school day?
Right now, it is a school day.
Right. We only take, yeah. But what if we didn't make it a contingent holiday?
That would be fine unless we have more than 4 snow days.
Well, that could happen anyway. I mean,
I have to think about that.
My question kind of goes with Gloria, so I'll just jump in. I was thinking also about the snow days and how we got snow days this year, which was awesome, instead of having it remote. But maybe instead, I don't know if we can have it remote day next year, that instead of being a snow day, so we could get that day back. I feel like I'm in agreement with Rebecca. There are all these competing options here, and none of them are good. I know people have suggested, oh, well, what about Good Friday? We don't need to have that day off. I'm sure people will be upset about that as well. So there's going to be people upset about all of these options. So to get a pulse of how people are feeling would be really helpful. At least it would give them a chance to give their input. But I do think, because this year other schools have done remote days and they count it as a school day instead of a snow day. And I appreciate that we actually had a snow day, so don't get me wrong, but maybe we could work with that next year somehow to get that day to accommodate for others.
We need to adapt a calendar, though, that shows 180 days. So I'm trying to wrap my head around how that would be. I mean, our snow days are actually any day beyond the 180. So we have the 184 with the conference days. I still think we need to adopt a calendar that is 180 days, which gets to the contingent, which right now is counted as one of those 180 days.
Right, so if we don't count that one and make it a day.
Then we're at 179.
I mean, if we count that, oh, this is already included to make one.
It is counted, yes.
I just feel like we're not voting on it tonight, and we've heard from a lot of people, and I think we're going to still hear from people, that at the very least we should try and see what other options and try our best to see what we can make work. Ultimately, we might end up with something that people are not happy about, at least one group is not happy about, but I think it's worth the consideration to try and see if we can make it work.
Okay, Barbara, and then go ahead, Barbara.
Just one of the things about polls, though, that I think we're all aware of, if you have a very activist group in your community and there's a poll, the emails will go out, the Facebook posts will go out, and you'll get an onslaught from that particular group of individuals. Others may not even be aware of the issue. And I think what we really have to do is sort of rely on best judgment, what BoCES is doing, try to find a way to accommodate this particular circumstance, this particular year. But I'm very leery of polls that are sent out. As you pointed out, the wording of the poll, the choices in the poll, these aren't things that you just make up in the course of 24 hours. So again, I guess I would rely on your expertise and cooperation with the BoCES calendar. And if we can somehow or other adjust these snow days or any other way that you could come up with to accommodate this special year, I'd be much more comfortable with than a poll of any kind.
Polls notwithstanding, I mean, polls can help inform you. Ultimately, this becomes the decision of the board. So even if there is, let's say we come up with a poll and I can work with Amy on that tomorrow, you still would need to make a judgment based on the data that you've gathered. I don't know that the poll would necessarily dictate your answer. It would inform, but not necessarily determine. I do think that the topic of the calendar is very popular. We've been hearing from people for a while now because we're a little late on the calendar. There's some other challenges in it. People want to know when the breaks are because they make plans to travel and such. So let me work with Amy to see if we can come up with a straightforward survey. And then I'll reach out to our intern as well to say, here are some other options. We've had a few years in a row of not difficult calendars. So this is kind of back to normal where we have difficult choices to make. But I appreciate all your input.
No matter what we do, we're not going to please everybody. And that's just, we're just going to have to figure out what is the least offensive.
Yes, it is. It's difficult. There's no two ways about it. Well, stay tuned on that and we'll come back.
Marie, we usually give 1 day for Rosh Hashanah, right?
Yes.
So going forward, are we going to be giving 2 days for Rosh Hashanah every year?
I think what's different this year, Ben, is that it falls on the first day of school. I don't know that we can, going forward, promise 2 days. It is very difficult some years, depending on how the days fall in the calendar, to actually find 180 days to be in session. So I'm not sure we could do 2 days every year.
Right. Well, that's my thought too, is that, if our start day is kind of limited to in September and our end day is kind of set by the state and we need to fit 184 school days in there, then, I get that this is the first day of school, but every year parents kind of have to make this choice of whether to send their kids to school or observe this holiday. So, my feeling would be to leave it as it is, but rather than go through all this survey about whether you'd like to come in, the Friday before Labor Day or the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, it just seems to me that, sometimes you have to miss school.
I think Blanca and then Seema.
Just to Ben's point, Ben, it's not just any other day, it's the first day of school. And that's very important for children and for teachers. You establish that bond day one or you don't. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I said before that, somebody is not going to be happy, but at the same time, like, if we are saying we value, we have values in our district, I think at the very least, we should try and look to see what other options there are. But I was going to add what you said, Blanca, that the first day of school is not like, missing another random day of school during the year. So I think we should at least look into it a little bit more. I know that people are waiting for the calendar, but I mean, they've already waited this long, and really none of us know what's happening next year anyway. So I don't think waiting another week or two is going to make a huge impact.
All right. Should I move on to my next difficult item? It's actually not that difficult. I'm just wanting to make sure the community knows that the draft budget presentation for the 21-22 school year has been postponed, and the budget Q&A workshop scheduled for March 11th has been canceled. The draft budget presentation will instead take place at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 23rd. And that evening will include a Q&A period for members of the board as well as community members. The reason for the delay is all about the uncertainty of our state aid at this point, and we're waiting for information around the federal relief package for New York State. We wanted to make sure that the information that we're presenting to you is as solid as possible and not, present early and then have to change it 10 times as we get new information. So again, we'll present that budget on March 23rd. And then our next regular board meeting is Tuesday, March 16th. And then the budget workshop following the presentation will be on March 30th. And it's not included here, but just so you know, we'll be adopting the budget. The board will be adopting the budget on April 13th this year.
Maria,
Go ahead.
Oh, I had a couple of, I know that we're not having this until the 23rd, the Q&A, but I thought I would just bring them up now because it might be easier to work that into the presentation. A couple of things I had written down were pandemic impacts, like expense aid. So, for example, I'm not saying this is true, but if we didn't use as much money in transportation, et cetera, then how would that impact our aid the following year? So, what did we not spend a lot on this year that would impact our aid for the following year? And then if we're thinking about bringing students back to school or to more regular school, I don't know what the plans are in terms of if you're planning any kind of programming or if there's any special thing that goes along with that and that how that would impact the budget as well. And then because of the uncertainty with the state aid, I don't know if you could do some kind of, I'm assuming Neil would probably already do this, some sensitivity analysis to show that, if the range, basically what the range of state aid could be and what our options could be based on that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Seema. So let me move on to some good news. Thanks to the creative and tenacious spirit of our theater departments across the middle and high school. I'll start with the high school to announce this, that the Guilderland Players, Cast, Crew, and Orchestra are presenting Little Women through a special arrangement with Music Theater International. The musical, with a book by Alan Nee, lyrics by Mindy Dickinson, and music by Jason Howland, is based on the novel by Louisa May Alcott. And performances will be streamed March 25th through 28th through the publisher's website. Special effects will be used to make actors appear closer together than they actually are in the spirit of social distancing. And the orchestration will be pre-recorded. Times and ticket prices are yet to be determined, but more information will be shared soon. We're just thrilled that the show will go on. And then I'm also excited to announce that Mask, the Farnsworth Middle School Drama Club, will be performing a cabaret-style virtual program that will take a look back at the last 10 years of shows. While it's yet to be determined whether or not students will actually be able to perform in person or virtually, there will be a program that is expected available in late spring. The goal is to get them on stage, even if it's virtually. So more to come on that, but we're really pleased that we're able to provide students with some additional performing arts opportunities. And then next, we're at that time of year where we typically have our joint meeting with the trustees of the Guilderland Public Library. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention this evening. I also have a suggested time for that meeting. I'm not sure if it's going to be sufficient length or if it will work. But the proposed meeting time is March 18th. And to meet prior to the public library's regular meeting at 6 o'clock. The only challenge with this is that we have a standing reopening committee every Thursday that we would either have to shorten or we would only be able to spend about 30 minutes with the trustees. So I'm throwing that out there as an idea, but it does not need to be where we land. So thoughts. I know it would be convenient for the public library. I have an inside track on how that schedule is. So any thoughts about that?
I mean, could you just, you can make, you said there's not a lot on the agenda, so couldn't you just make it work that short?
I think we could. I mean, I spoke with Tim, and I think the main topic that the library would like to share with us is really an update on their capital construction project. And so I don't know that we have a ton of topics. We always kind of reaffirm our collaborative spirit on the programming side with the library, but that, you know, continues to be going very well in spite of, you know, the times we're in. And I assume when things are back more normal, we'll pick up where we left off if it's slowed down a little bit. I'm comfortable trying to make that maybe 5:30 work. And if we find we need more time, we could pick another day, I suppose. Okay, then why don't we plan for that? Okay, my last topic is around performing music, and it also touches our physical education program. But tonight I'm interested in bringing the possibility of expanding our opportunities for students to participate in the performing arts. And we're looking at this by reducing the 12-foot social distancing rule for singing and wind instruments to the 6-foot recommendation that now the Centers for Disease Control is supporting. This recommendation is backed by recent research commissioned by an international coalition of performing arts organizations, and that includes the New York State School Music Association. Currently, our district practices the 12-foot social distancing. We require that students wear masks when they're playing their instruments and use bell covers on wind instruments. The New York State Department of Health guidance on this topic mandates a 6-foot social distancing, but recommends as a best practice the larger distance. The district would like to consider transitioning to the 6-foot social distancing rule with masks and bell covers for wind instruments. Doing so would make it possible to bring back the ability to sing in general music, the ability to sing in any classroom where students are masked and spaced 6 feet apart, the possibility for holding socially distant live streamed or outdoor performances for larger ensembles, and an increased sense of togetherness for our musicians. And then I know it would also impact or could impact our physical education instruction, which is currently offered under the 12-foot social distancing rule. I'll just add that this Friday, the Suburban Council of Superintendents is meeting, and this is the first item on our agenda. Bob Winans, who's here with us tonight, in case you have questions for him, his colleague from North Colony will be presenting the information that I shared in the PowerPoint that went out in Friday's packet. This is another one of these areas I'm not asking the board to decide tonight, but really wanting to discuss your comfort level with the notion of expanding opportunities for our performing arts, much in the same way we've expanded opportunities for students in the athletics world. So I'll open it, leave it at that, and take your comments, questions. I wasn't paying attention to all the hands. There's a lot of them. So Barbara, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, I'm totally in support of expanding these opportunities for kids. Considering that we are allowing wrestling where kids are face to face, and with these precautions in place, 6-foot distancing, if we're following CDC guidelines, I see no reason under the sun why we would consider not allowing the music department to let the kids have a little bit of fun this year. The music program has been so hamstrung. It's amazing that what they have done with what they have, but expanding this opportunity, I think, in light of the CDC guidance, in light of the fact that fortunately, you know, more and more people are being vaccinated, and that our numbers so far have gone down the way we were hoping that they would go down. To me, I think as soon as we can get these kids singing again and playing again and allowing for, groupings outside, it certainly is a step in the right direction. Our kids really need this, and our teachers need it. I think they are. You heard the letter from the special area teachers and their frustrations of not being able to interact better with the children in the classroom situation. So I'm 100% in support of expanding the kids' opportunities.
Thanks, Barbara. And I think you were next. Your hand's up.
I'm sorry, that was not for this discussion.
Oh, okay. Seema?
I was just going to reiterate what Barb said. I think if we're allowing wrestling, and I think we've tried to accommodate, to let students play sports, to have their extracurriculars back, and this would be great for to do the same for performing arts, music, chorus, etc. So I'm in favor of whatever we can do. I know we're not deciding tonight, but whatever we need to do to help support music coming back to the district. I think people would really, they really need something to look forward to, and that's one thing. What is this, March? And they've not had that all year. I think if we're allowing wrestling, that we should be able to have this as well.
Blanca?
I was wondering what the time frame is for starting this, if it goes through.
Bob, let me turn to you. You can talk a little. I know it's yesterday, but what's the realistic time frame if it were to go forward?
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's a recommended best practice under the New York State Department of Health guidance. In the summer, before the research study that was done by the NFHS and supported by a huge number of arts organizations throughout the world, we didn't have the research to really back, and to be honest, neither did New York State. When they came up with 12 feet of guidance, that wasn't really based on anything other than they knew that there were stories out, that there was some super spreader events regarding singing. And so nobody involved in music education in New York State is really quite certain where the 12 feet of guidance came from. But we wanted to be absolutely as safe as possible. The safety of our students is first and foremost. And so we actually went beyond the guidance. We went not only at 12 feet, but we also required masks, bell covers, and instrument masks. So we were being very cautious because we wanted to keep students as safe as possible. But the research that is out there now, says that there is, like for singing, and there's the highest number of particle spread with the soprano register, and a masked singer sees a 92% reduction in aerosols. Oboe is the highest aerosol spread, surprisingly, for wind instruments, and there was a 96% reduction just with the use of a bell cover, and we also have instrument masks as well. So the study recommends that you use masks for singers and instruments, and masks for an instrument means bell cover. 6 feet of distance, 30-minute rehearsals, which our rehearsals are 40 minutes. And so by the time students get in and set up their instruments, and there's a little bit of announcements, one on the beginning, we're in that time frame. Our airflow based on our HVAC units meets all of the requirements, and then there's recommendations based on hygiene, such as hand washing and how we're storing instruments. We've been doing that, since the beginning of the year.
So Bob, let me interrupt you. We were thinking about prospective. So if everyone or we were comfortable going forward with expanding these, I think the question is, so when would we try to start doing that with our own students here in Guilderland?
We, like you said yesterday, is when we would like to begin this. So, you know, as soon as we can, because it would be really valuable. K through 5 students are losing out on a lot of music instruction, not being able to sing. And you know, the special area teachers who have done a phenomenal job this year, not only have a limited access to equipment because they're pushing into classrooms, but they also can't sing. If you're pushing into classrooms, one of the biggest tools at your disposal is the human voice, and they don't have that. This would be really huge for not only the special area teachers, but more importantly, the students. And it would also allow classroom teachers to start using, you know, singing in their classes as well. And there is a lot of song that happens in the classroom, as it's singing is very, very closely tied to literacy.
So I guess it's ASAP, Blanca, is the answer. Barbara?
I don't know why we have to wait. We have the data. We know that we're, believe it or not, heading towards the end of the school year. If we wait another 2 weeks until the next school board meeting, it seems a waste of time. These kids need to be singing now. We need to be doing these things now. Is there any impediment to our saying, go ahead, give the kids their voice today versus 2 weeks from now, other than hurting the kids even more?
Barbara, this is different than the athletic conversation where the governor basically created a set of rules which said the board must vote on this. There is no vote required, but we wanted to make sure that the board was in support of this kind of action before we go forward, because, you know, to my knowledge, no one in our immediate vicinity is doing this. Although I think after Friday's meeting with the Suburban Council, I could see North Colony joining us, perhaps Shen, because their feelings are very similar to what you've just voiced in wanting to support our performing arts. Rebecca?
My only concern is that it contradicts New York State best practice. Is there any movement, as far as you know, in New York State to reevaluate that or to publish different guidelines?
Dr. David Brown, who is superintendent of DeRuyter Central School District and longtime music educator, and he's the NISMA, New York State School Music Association president, has been advocating this reduction in the guidance from 12 feet to 6 feet and has been lobbying Governor Cuomo. And I believe there is a meeting set up to talk about this, not necessarily with Governor Cuomo, but somebody else at the state level. So there are many different lobbying efforts happening throughout the state at different, you know, local and state levels.
Blanca? And then Barbara.
I share Rebecca's concern. I work in worker safety, and OSHA has its own guidelines, and the New York PESH has its own, and we have to follow New York PESH. So I'm a little weary of just going by CDC and not New York. Also, I don't think that this is the same thing as wrestling, because wrestling is 2 people on a mat that's been sanitized. This is a group of people that we want to put a little closer together. We know that the masks and the coverings are not foolproof. And my understanding is that they're trying to, project as much air as they can. So that concerns me as a public health professional. I'm not saying no, I'm saying I'm not all in. I'm nervous about it. I think it might be premature. Vaccines are being given, but they're not given to the pediatric community yet. We would be the first district, right, to do it. I'm also a little wary of that.
I will say that the study was conducted with professional singers, and the ability of an adult to project their voice is much, much, much greater than a child. So all of that data and the 92% reduction in aerosols was based on an adult voice. So the ability of a child to project their voice to that degree is not anywhere near what an adult can do.
Barbara?
Let's face it, the ability of kids to sing in the classroom and their needs is a very low priority on the Department of Health bureaucracy. As has been pointed out, this 12-foot distancing, that was plucked out of the air. And the other guidelines that came down the pike, again, really had no scientific basis. The 6-foot distancing, that basically had a little more science to it. But why is it that our students in gymnastics class or in gym had to be 12 feet apart, but teams could practice 6 feet apart? As I said, there was no rationale, and there's no urgency on the part of the health department to examine this tiny little segment of this huge issue. Bob has pointed out the studies that were done on adults with much stronger voices. I am totally comfortable with giving the kids this opportunity, and I just can't speak more highly of our teachers and the need, as Bob pointed out, that singing doesn't just happen in music class. Many of our foreign language teachers use music to learn the language. Kids love it. And it just adds another whole dimension to the classroom that we're preventing by not allowing this to go effect immediately. So I just hope that we can give the go-ahead to the music department to, to really let the kids again have their voices.
Blanca?
I'm pretty resentful of this being whittled down. We've lost 500,000 Americans. I'm pretty resentful of this topic being whittled down to let's give the students their voice, as if I'm trying to censor them in some way. I'm trying to stop the spread of a lethal disease. That's my first concern. Bureaucracy or not in the Department of Health, there's a chain of command. And I think that in our state, we usually defer to the state and not to the CDC. And I am very concerned about moving forward with this. Again, I'm not saying no, but I'm not going to be sold on, this sentiment of let's do this because it'll make the kids happy, because we need to keep them safe first, and the teachers.
Ben?
If you're looking for a pulse of the board, I just wanted to say that I agree with Barb. I'm all in favor of giving the kids more opportunities in school.
Blanca, is that your hand?
No, but I would say that I would be curious to see what Rebecca says, because I would probably defer to her, because I can't make up my mind on this.
Rebecca?
I have reservations like you do, and I think the CDC is not clear. I think there's a recommendation from the CDC from last week that recommends that singing has a social distancing threshold of 12 feet. But we're not acting here as public health officials. We're acting here as a school board. And I think, we should not be giving medical advice over this forum. But that's why I think we need to defer to the New York State guidelines, which currently have as best practice 12 feet, which is why I have reservation. So if we are contradicting New York State best practice, we have to have a reason to do so. And the reason proffered is the CDC guidelines that contradict each other, depending on which one you're using. So it's a tough one.
Barbara?
I just think that the data that Bob has provided for us on the investigations that have been done over the course of the last year on professional singers And also the fact that, you know, when we look at the COVID deaths, which are horrendous, yes, but the number of children that have suffered by not being able to have their usual classroom routines, the long-term effects of that are probably not going to be seen for years to come. I mean, I think educationally, we already know that most of the kids are probably going to be about a year behind. And as I said, I really want to give them this opportunity. I think Bob's investigation work that he has done and his colleagues have done to show the safeness and the benefit for students to allow this to happen. I just hope that, you know, we go forward and as I said, let it happen. Thank you.
Kelly?
I kind of agree with Rebecca and Blanca. I'd like some more information. I understand that the studies that are presented here, you know, they are commissioned by the International Coalition of Performing Arts and the School Music Association. So they're going to have, I'm not going to say an angle, I'm just going to say that they have a certain different, you know, sort of research that they're looking for. I kind of have to say, I do fall back to Rebecca's comment about the best practices. I want to see these kids get back to school and I want to see them sing. That was a huge part of my education was music, like, and that really was so important to me when I was in school. And I don't know what I would have done without that, but this is a different time. And I just I'm not sure exactly. I know you mentioned that you're not looking for a vote or anything, or you're looking for support or non-support. So I'm kind of like, I want to know like what sort of action or non-action that we need to take as a board today or in 2 weeks also. But undecided, but a little bit weary about. I think we should follow the guidelines that are set out because it's backed by the CDC research. I don't know if that's the right term, but I agree with Blanca. And Rebecca, I'm sorry, I meant both.
Bob, does the 12-foot singing guideline include wearing a mask or not wearing a mask? Is it 12 feet without a mask?
It doesn't indicate, and I believe when we were in the task of reopening schools in the summer, the guidance around wearing a mask, we made the decision as a district to have everyone wear masks, but I remember there was conversation surrounding whether or not, you know, initially whether or not we were going to go that route. I don't believe there is any guidance around specifically wearing masks at 12 feet. And there are districts in our region that are not wearing masks at 12 feet. They're at 12 feet, but they're not utilizing bell covers, you know, or masks. You know, like I said, we were going under an abundance of caution in the summer, and wanted to make sure that we were doing everything that we could to be safe. So that included us doing masks, instrument masks, and bell covers.
Gloria, Judy, Luciano, do you want to give us a little bit about what you're thinking?
I am so on the fence on this. Of course, you know, being a parent of music students, I realize the importance of all this. However, I remember we were wrestling through the sports decisions. We always deferred to, you know, what was being recommended. And I feel like we owe it to the kids to defer right now to what's recommended. And I think New York State is where we need to be. We live in New York State. They're making their recommendations based on data here. So I guess I'm leaning right now on not making the change until New York State is behind it.
I think in this case, I mean, I don't remember who it was, but, you know, 515,000 deaths, all it would take is one kid becoming seriously ill. And I don't like saying it, but I think we sort of have to go with the New York State recommendation. I'd rather have the kids having it, but all it takes is one.
I would be in support of 6 feet with masks and instrument masks and the bell covers. 12 feet without a mask really seems kind of risky to me. If they're singing, that doesn't make too much sense in my brain. But if they're 6 feet apart, they're wearing a mask, they have the bell covers on the instrument, the data that was presented to us was very, very convincing. It showed a massive reduction in the droplets in the air that get out. So I think that's something we should take in consideration, because New York State has a best practice recommendation. It's not a set rule, it's a best practice. The best practice would be that the kids don't sing at all, they stay home. So that would be ultimately the best thing. But we're trying to come up with something that allows them to sing. And we've been talking a lot about music. The other thing to bring up is phys ed, right? The kids are 12 feet apart. They're limited in what they can do. If we can make it 6 feet, it would make it a lot easier for our coaches. So I'd be fully in favor of 6 feet with masks and precautions.
Okay, thank you. I think Kelly and then Blanca.
There it is. I think I want to be very weary about making medical decisions that we don't really know about. Like, I am not a medical doctor. I have not read the research. Yeah, I can say I don't believe it, but who am I to say that? I want to rely on the data and information that we're getting. I don't want to be an armchair doctor. I'm not even remotely close. So my opinion really doesn't matter. Really, my thoughts on this doesn't matter. I think what thoughts on this matters is, and I know there's lots of different opinions and lots of different studies, but we have to pick one and go with it. And if we went with the New York State guidelines for one, I think we should stick with that for the other. But to Robert's point of once we can get outside, that kind of changes the whole game, right? So then we take a look at the guidance for that. But I'm not going to make a medical decision on this and defer. I'm going to defer to the New York State guidelines.
Barbara? You're muted, Barbara.
I'm just wondering why we wouldn't listen to the updated CDC guidelines that have had experience over 50 states versus New York State that really hasn't even concentrated on this area. And we're here as a school board to not make medical decisions, but to see what is best for kids. And we know that kids need this. We also know that as a conglomerate group, children are fortunately the lowest incidence of COVID. And yet we keep penalizing kids and taking things away from them. Here we have an opportunity. We have a department who has done phenomenal research, is providing us with information, how they can do this safely to the best of their ability. There's no 100% guarantee in life for anything, but they have taken extraordinary precautions over the course of this entire year. They now are coming forward to us feeling very, very comfortable that they have, to the best of their knowledge, a safe way of allowing our children to participate in music. And I don't see why we can't make a decision as common sense adults that this overall, with all the information that has been provided to us, that from people that really care about children, that we can go forward and give them permission to allow the kids to be kids and have, as I said, have a voice and be able to. The CDC is 50 statewide. They have experience from all 50 states. They have seen this virus and how it has acted, and they have been more up to date in revising their guidelines as more information comes in. And our state health department, I don't believe, has done that. Maybe in time they will, but as I said, I'm depending upon what our teachers and our administrator here have done in way of preparation. They care about the kids as much as we do. And I think the parents would appreciate letting the children, as I said, be able to sing in class, not just in music class, but in other classes, as was pointed out. So again, I'm 100% in favor of giving the kids this opportunity and not waiting, you know, for another month or whatever. And school is almost over. Thank you.
I think Seema next.
So clearly people feel differently about this, so I don't think we'll make a decision tonight, I don't think, but I'm wondering if this is being presented to the other school districts on Friday, right? Can we maybe get an update after that happens and see what other districts are deciding? Because I don't think there's any right or wrong here, but there's, you know, arguments on both sides that make a lot of sense. It might be helpful to have a little bit more time to think about it and see what other districts are doing too.
Sure, the meeting ends at 2, so I'll have time to provide an update in my Friday communication. Blanca?
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with what Rebecca said a while ago, and I've been thinking about it more, and Kelly. I don't think I would be comfortable deciding, making this choice and saying it's okay to do it. I think it's up to the state entity. Barb, I actually have some pretty strong feelings about the way CDC handled this situation to begin with, so I disagree with you respectfully about putting our trust in them completely. I think it's better to defer to our state health department. And also, I just want to say to the folks watching at home and to all of you that I take no pleasure in not being on board with singing. I have a singer in my home. I have a bagpiper in my home. I have a French horn player and 2 drummers. So this has been absolutely miserable for them, and I would like nothing more than to let them go back. But I really do think it's a safety concern.
So I will, oh, Seema, I'm sorry.
No, I have to lower my hand, sorry.
So I will share with you what I learned on Friday, and we can revisit at the appropriate time. All right, and that ends my report for tonight.
Thanks, Dr. Wiles. Moving on to board president information. You can see policy has been very busy. This is A through U, I think. So we have a huge set of policies to look through. Does anyone on the policy committee want to point us to anything in particular? Maybe that there was more discussion around or anything like that? No? Go ahead, Barb, you can just.
Oh, oops. Really, most of them are just older policies. There's no new policies in there other than the policy that has to deal with clustering for our elementary schools. And there's a new apartment complex that is, you know, in the making. And so that is just a slight revision there.
It's letter M, the flexible attendance zones.
Okay.
So it's a new complex on Winding Brook Road near the Y that will be included in our flex zone as the starts to fill up.
Kelly, did you have something?
Yes. There's a lot of stuff there, and I know I've brought it up a couple times into various forums. When can there be an like, I think these policies are low hanging fruit for the diversity and equity committee to really kind of get their fingers into something, whether it's a quick review and say we have no problems, or like, 'cause I know we're not slow moving, but there's things that we could do right now, and rather than me next week just approving 22 or whatever it is things, I would like a set of eyes on them from the lens of the diversity and equity committee, just for a once over. And Steve, I know you're on the or one of the what committee are you on?
The
team that fit most into your committee that you happen to be on, internal equity audit. I'm kind of looking at it. How can we fit that in as an opportunity to connect these two groups?
Well, I remember Kelly mentioned before, like the language that's written in the policies, and something like changing some of the language would be really quick and easy change. And we wordsmith, I feel like all the time, or at least policy does now. I'm not a policy anymore. I'm assuming that's what happens there. So I think some of those things can be changed, but I think our committee is meeting I don't know when. We're meeting sometime. So maybe if these are up for information, maybe we can look. Are you thinking of some particular ones for that subcommittee to look at?
Well, there was a lot. I mean, the one that stood out. There's racial harassment of students and staff. I mean, I haven't looked at it yet, so I don't know. Hazing policy. There's a lot of foreign students things in here.
Well, I mean,
You know, there seems to be a lot actually in here that would maybe have some sort of nexus. I don't know. I have to look at it.
well, if it's up for information, I don't see why we couldn't just pass some of the policies on to that subcommittee to say these are up for information and to be voted on next time. So if you want to look over them to see what stands out to you, I don't see why that would be a problem unless, Marie, there's a timeline rush on any of these. Timeliness.
No, none of them are, timely. So if we wanted to invite the members of the committee, I mean, they're welcome to look at them.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a formal process for that to happen, and I'm not sure if we want to build in a formal process because the subcommittees technically have a lot of work ahead of them once they're up and running. But, if individuals on the committee want to look at these, they're available to everyone.
But that's kind of the point of it, to have a different set of eyes than us 14 of us looking at, 9 of us looking at this, that we've looked at it for years and years and years. And, well, I haven't, people have. There's something there that I won't notice. And I think that's the whole point of having a diverse committee, to look at them, to point out something that I wouldn't notice.
Well, I think for that audit, that internal audit, Kelly, that we're just starting to put together like what kinds of data we'd want to collect. And so maybe looking at some of these policies would be included in that. So I think like the racial harassment one and any other ones that if there's no timeline or timeliness issue with any of them, maybe we can hold off and include that because we just started this work. So nothing's been reviewed in terms of collecting data for this kind of stuff. I know there's like quantitative data that like Mike Bashan is going to be, given the group. But there's other stuff in the district that would also be looked at. So I can pass this on to that group. And if we're not in a rush to pass it, can I maybe ask the policy group to hold off on that one since we have many others to look at?
I mean, maybe just like a cursory look at ones that might have a nexus and hold off on those just for a little bit more review. And then the more mundane ones that really wouldn't, some of them are up one paragraph long, right? So it's not like a big,
yeah,
be like, okay, let's move those on to our normal process. But I think there's an opportunity there to get engaged, get that committee engaged.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barb, go ahead. I just seen your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, all these policies that had stakeholders within the district, like the hazing policy was reviewed by our athletic director, the sexual harassment went to the various union people and the, different staff groups. So all these policies, they just haven't been looked at by, 4 or 5 of us. They've been looked at by people that are directly affected by these things. And they're posted on the website. Anybody in the community certainly can look at them if they want to provide input, but I can't see holding things up indefinitely because people do have access to these policies, and if they want to make comments on it, they can write to us or they can call us. And if they need refinement or things that, maybe the stakeholders missed or that we as board members missed, we certainly would be more than willing to take another look at it. But to move all of the policy making or review onto this other committee sort of seems a little bit redundant.
No, I don't think it's
not what I'm saying.
moving the policy off to, I mean, I've been on policy. Every time the policy comes up that has to do with different groups in the district, we always ask for their input and get like some homework done. And this committee is brand new, so there just hasn't been an opportunity yet to do that. This would be really simple to do, and there's no reason why. I mean, we have A through U. If there were one or two policies that were held off, just so there's more opportunity for others to look at it, I don't see why that would be a big issue. There's nothing that there's no deadlines with this.
I'm not saying hold off indefinitely on anything. Those words never came out of my mouth. I said hold off. Like what would it hurt us to hold off for 2 weeks? Absolutely nothing, really, to have another person look at it. So
No, we are holding off for 2 weeks anyway. This is a first read, so to speak. I have no problem with that, but I'm saying if we get a number of people who are commenting from the public, be they on the diversity committee or just common everyday citizens that aren't on the diversity committee, and they highlight a particular policy, then certainly I think the committee obviously would take a second look and take their suggestions and refinements and take a very close look at it. But for just in general, that, as I said, that 2-week comment period is to me sufficient to alert us to any deficiencies that we may have missed. And, then at the end of those 2 weeks, if we haven't gotten a lot of feedback, negative feedback on a particular policy, I think we should follow our normal procedures and, pass them on.
And
That's all I'm saying.
that's great. I just want to provide the opportunity. Before I was on the board or any of the other committees, I wasn't my first purpose in life to dig out 150, to start looking at Guilderland's policies. I had no reason at all to even be concerned with them, but we have an organization that is concerned with them, people that are concerned, and if you look, this is like the systemic part of something that we can make effective change or look at, just look at. I'm not saying change anything. All I'm saying is a cursory look. If there's nothing to even see here, then we pass it as normal and move on. That's it. End of story.
I mean, I can bring it to that subcommittee, Kelly. It's up for, it's out publicly. And like you said, I think those are the small little changes that we're talking about, is making alerting people that this is up for a policy. This is really the only time we can enact and make some changes in the district. So here's an opportunity to do this. There's absolutely no reason why, I've been on policy. There's other times where we ask the athletic director, the principal, we ask for their feedback. We ask for parents' feedback. We're responsive to the district. I remember when the name policy or naming field or naming anything came up as a policy, there was no policy, so we had to write one right then. So we are responsive to the district and to the community. So I can pass it on, Kelly, and then we can go from there. Now my agenda just left. Hold on 1 second. Any other policies that people have questions about or comments? Okay. So the next item is the upcoming Board of Education election. I'll just read what we have here. Petitions are available through the district clerk for any district resident who might be considering running for the Board of Election. 149 signatures of eligible voters, district voters, are required based on the 2% of those voting in last year's election. There are 3 3-year terms on the board that will begin July 1st, 2021. General information: in order to be eligible to run for the Board of Education, nominating petitions with 149 or more signatures from qualified voters in the district must be submitted to the district clerk on or before Monday, April 19th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Anyone who has questions about the duties and responsibilities of a board member may contact the superintendent, board president, or any other current member of the Board of Education. A candidate must be able to read and write, be at least 18 years of age, a qualified voter, and a district resident for at least 1 year prior to the date of the vote on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Further qualifications and information is in the packet available through the district clerk. And if I remember correctly, I think, Marie, you and I talked about briefly that there was a discussion at the state about making a change on the 2% of last year's voters, because last year there were a lot more voters than normal because of the mail-in ballots.
Yes, there is a lot of discussion about that because the numbers of petitions is much higher and it's perhaps not the safest thing to ask potential candidates to go door to door gathering signatures. I don't know where that stands right now, but should it be amended, we would also amend the number for our potential candidates.
Barb, did you have your a question?
I was just gonna say what Marie just said. I had heard that they had reduced the number from 149 down to a particular percentage, which really lowers that number. So I just hope people aren't scared off by our saying 149, because I think it's gonna be a lot less than that.
Yeah, I thought I had heard that they were going to take an average of the 5 years prior number of voters, or something like that. But if it changes, we can just put an update out there so people should be encouraged to come and run and participate. This is the opportunity to do something. So, and I also don't know about the signatures piece. Last year, there were no signatures. I know some districts in the state are allowing electronic signatures. I haven't heard anything about that here, so I guess we'll wait and see what happens. The last item I have is the Capital Regions BoCE's annual meeting. This is on April 14th, 2021. And this will be live streamed at 5:30 p.m. If board members are interested in attending, please let Board Clerk Linda Livingston know. For your information, our special board meeting scheduled to take place Wednesday, April 21st at 8 a.m. is the date selected to vote on the 21-22 BoCE's budget and election. This date was mistakenly reported as April 22nd on the BoCE's website. Please make a note. So it's April 21st at 8 a.m. is when we'll have that BoCE's vote and election. And that's it for me. So moving on to action items, school business, Neil.
Thank you. First item this evening is a recommendation to approve a tutorial contract with Four Winds Katona Hospital.
Can I have a motion to approve the tutorial contract? Barb, second Blanca. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
Okay, my other item this evening is a recommendation to approve the application for a corrected tax roll for the tax year 2020-21. And it's in the town of Bethlehem for some property that the town acquired, and there was a clerical error in terms of recognizing that property as tax exempt when it was acquired by the town.
Can I have a motion to approve the corrected tax roll? Kelly, second Rebecca. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you, Neil. Next, board president action. We have one item here. This is letter A, resolution to approve winter high-risk sports. And so you can look at the resolution. There are there's 3 specifics on there. The sports that this addresses, this is football and volleyball. Under those following conditions that are listed there. And then lastly, that the board delegates to and authorize the superintendent to take any action she deems necessary and appropriate to ensure that such sports are implemented in a safe manner, consistent with all guidelines. This includes the authority to temporarily suspend district participation in any of the above sports if the superintendent deems such action necessary. Can I have a motion to approve the high-risk sports resolution? Barb, second Rebecca. Any questions or comments?
Seema, I just want to point out that that should actually say fall 2 high-risk sports instead of winter high-risk sports.
Yes, that makes more sense. Football.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll have to make that change.
In the minutes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions about this? Barb?
Yeah, on the resolution, there's only one section that I have a question about, and that is about the spectator sports. We certainly can allow in our large gym for the, say, the volleyball games or our remaining basketball games. Parents to attend under very, very safe conditions. These gymnasiums are huge. You're, particularly with basketball, you only have about 10 people on each team. These gymnasiums have huge airflow. They have huge capacity. And I talked to Dave today about the possibility of allowing spectators into our remaining basketball games in the large gymnasium. He said you could act very, very successfully, have, parents come in, have assigned seats more than 6 feet apart, particularly in a gymnasium of this size. And the same it would be with a volleyball team. For football, obviously, you'd be outdoors, and there may be a different circumstance there. But I think the resolution says no spectators allowed, and I guess I would like to have some consideration for that, considering the vastness of our gym, and the safety factor will certainly be there, to accommodate parents.
A lot of the parents I've heard from are really happy that we are live streaming them, and so that they
That
can
we're
watch them. What's that?
Right. That we're at least allowing their kids to participate, which is wonderful.
Well, yeah, participate, but also live streaming so they can still watch the game. The problem I see is if we start letting spectators in, now we have all these adults that we have to enforce to wear masks, and I don't know if I trust that. And then if there is somebody positive, then now there's all this additional contact tracing that's going to happen from there. I just feel like we're adding this whole other piece that we don't need to add when none of our parents, I've not heard of any complaints. People are really happy that they can watch their kids play. Maybe you can revisit it another time, but I don't see why we would change that now.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there a CDC or a New York State regulation
Jeez.
about that?
I think the state said it was going to be up to the districts, right, Marie? And then the suburban council, all of them are not having spectators.
This too is on the agenda for the Suburban Council of Superintendents on Friday. Where most districts are is that there was a priority getting the athletic programs up and running, which was quite a heavy lift because the turnaround time was so short. So the goal was, let's get our teams practicing, let's get some games under our belt, so to speak, and then reassess. I know there is conversation now among some of my colleagues about some limited amount of spectators being allowed. For example, everyone right now is allowing the parents of seniors come in for senior night events, but that's been 6 or 8 people. It's very manageable. So it is a topic of conversation, really, to get at our capacity to host spectators, to make sure we have enough real estate to social distance and enough staff to make sure that everyone is following protocols, wearing their masks, social distancing, signing in, providing contact tracing information. We're just not quite there yet. And frankly, here in Guilderland, we would only be able to make that possible in our large gym. So for example, wrestling takes place in the East Gym. There is not any at all space for spectators to be allowed there. So we might at some point want to come forward to say, could we have some level of spectators? I would say we're not quite there yet at this point.
Did we have spectators in the fall?
They were outdoors, only outdoors. That's the difference, really. But again, I think for us in Guilderland, the West Gym is big. And we probably could provide the social distancing. So we're just not quite there yet.
So any other comments or questions about this resolution? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Judy, did you say yes? You said yes. Judy, did you vote?
I didn't say yes. I would rather wait and see what's going on with directives from the state or the CDC. So I guess I'm a no.
For the sports?
Yeah, for the spectators at the sports.
I'm sorry, Barb, you're frozen, so I don't know if you're voting or you have a question.
I just wanted to clarify for Judy, this is to allow
The sport.
volleyball and football, just to allow the sport. It has nothing to
okay.
do with the
No,
spectators, it's just to allow the sport to happen, under the guidance of our athletic department. That's all that this
Okay.
resolution is right now.
All right, then I'm a yes for having the sports happen.
Okay, so that passes 9-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to board committee reports.
Seema, don't forget the coaches.
Oh, yes, thank you. What was that, letter M? No, letter I. Let me just move back up the agenda 1 minute. Go back to the personnel. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the letter. Is it letter B?
Letter H.
Letter H, thank you. Letter H for the fall coaches appointments. Gloria, can I have a second? Luciano, any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Hold on. There's more coaches, there's more sports on this than we just approved in the resolution. Is cheerleading and bowling not high-risk sports? And we're just getting to these appointments now?
We already approved the cheerleading under winter.
Okay.
And
the
bowling
bowl-
was, this is unified bowling. Bowling was approved back at the beginning of the regular winter season. It's not one of the high risk.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 9-0. Thanks for the reminder, Marie. We'll go back down to committee reports. We'll start with communications.
Communications will be meeting tomorrow at 2:30, and on our agenda is community engagement for the budget and pick up our actions on school start time.
Thanks, Gloria. What about business practices?
Excuse me, we don't have a meeting scheduled and we haven't had one.
Thanks, Judy. And audit, Ben?
We met on February 22nd to review the internal audit report prepared by Trustees. This year we took a look at state aid, different categories of state aid that we could be maximizing. The major finding that I think we all took away was homeless students are eligible, for their tuition to be reimbursed to us, depending on how much of the school year they spent in our district. And they were not being put into the system correctly or completely to get that reimbursement. And so our district was missing out on tens of thousands of dollars over the past few years from that. So I think one of the things we'll be taking a look at going forward is coming up with a system to make sure that process gets completed. Other things that we looked at were the claims auditor reports that we approved earlier in the agenda, and we got an update on the school lunch fund status, which, like most years, has a little bit of a surplus for us. So we're doing well there. Our next meeting is March 22nd at 8 a.m.
Thank you, Ben. Policy, we've been busy. Barb?
You have the fruits of our labors, and we have another meeting scheduled in about a month.
And equity and diversity, I think Kelly's going to do an update.
I've been tagged to be the spokesperson from the board. So we had our meeting on February 24th. Most everybody was present. Our steering committee was doing a really good job of kind of molding this group. It's really in its infancy, but we're making steps, baby steps here. We reviewed the charge of the committee and had a bunch of discussion around that still, but we're working towards everybody being in agreement of what is actually going to be our primary and secondary focuses. And currently, a more immediate focus of the committee will be race, and then we'll follow on adding to that along the way. A bit of this group is an education series, so we, as a committee beforehand, read a interesting article, and we broke into our subgroups, and we discussed those within our subgroups, and then we discussed it a little bit more within the larger group, and that was a very interesting conversation. Let's see. We had multiple public comments, and then kind of wrapped it up. I don't know if I have to look at my appointment here to see when our next our next meeting. I think it's on the 24th of March. That's what I have in here. And I'm looking forward to continuing the work and making more steps towards some progress.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so moving on to board issues, ideas, and sharing. Blanca, did you have a hand up? Go ahead.
I only watched part of the diversity committee meeting. I think on the recording, there's no sound for some of the time. I don't know if anybody else has caught that, but there's a whole chunk of time where you see suddenly somebody's headphones and their screen, and then there's no sound. So I did the best I could, but I know that race was brought up as the focus, the first focus, and then other topics were brought up, were going to follow. So I was wondering, had you already come up with what was going to be next, etc., or did you just pick what you were going to tackle first?
If you want me to talk, Kelly, I can just jump in.
Go for it.
So we just established subcommittees, and so you have to remember that committee is 20 people from all different people in the community. So it's going to take a little bit of time. We just established subcommittees. We're just coming up with tasks to do in those subcommittees. So I think we've had 3 meetings or something. So we're getting there. I don't think we're not caught up like the other committees that have been around for years. It just started. But I think, like you mentioned, or you saw in the meeting, Blanca, that we're going to be looking at all different groups of students, and because the point is being equitable across all groups of students. And so we talked about that piece. And then we're also, I think, going to have hopefully a website up soon, so we can put out more publicly the work that's being done there, so people have an idea of what's happening. But yeah, so there isn't a list of things, but we're just starting that work. It's a lot of people, and just organizing that into subcommittees and breaking that down into activities and tasks is a lot of work. And I'm sure the other people on here that are on that group or that committee can speak to that as well. Oh, go ahead, Barb.
I just wanted to say, whoever is responsible for posting the meeting on YouTube, I haven't been able to find it yet. And usually it's posted immediately. And now hearing Blanca say that the original transmission apparently was pretty poor. Maybe Marie can answer, who actually posts this? Is it BoCES or is it our own department? And usually, as I said, it appears the other two meetings are there and they've been there, immediately after the meeting. But this one, for some reason, we can't seem to find it.
We post, I'm just looking right now. I am going to,
Found it.
I'm going to have to look into it.
I think we could follow up, right, and just make sure that it's. that-
Yeah, I'll look.
Kelly, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is through our committees, at some point here, we're going to be looking for more engagement from the community through those subcommittees. So there's going to be an opportunity for more community members to be involved in different aspects of this. So there's more opportunities for more people to get involved, and I hope that people do.
Okay, thank you. Any other board issues, ideas, and sharing? Oh, okay. So we'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Clyde, second Rebecca. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes 9-0. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.